Hello and welcome back to World Talks, coming to you live from Warsaw on TVP World. My name is Alex Semlinski. Now, on Friday, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that auditors examining public spending between 2016 and 2023 under the former Law and Justice government have so far identified expenses to the tune of some 23 billion euro they suspect might have been spent illegally. Now, the Polish Prime Minister accused Law and Justice of creating a closed system using state money for its own political and financial gain. This allegedly included financing election campaigns and directing money to foundations linked to its politicians. And now joining us to talk about this further is political analyst Łukasz Warzecha. Good morning and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So now, can you tell our viewers what are the key findings of the investigation into the previous government that have led to the indictment of 62 individuals?
In fact, it's very difficult to say because to be honest, I treat this press conference and everything that has been happening around this issue as more of a public relations coup. On the part of the Donald Tusk's government, trying to divert public attention from things that are hard to explain or to which this government doesn't have any solution, like, for example, rising energy prices. Why am I saying that? If you take a look at the sum, which is a very easy to remember 100 billion zloty, it seems to me quite obvious that this sum is not based on any reliable analysis because it's too easy to remember. It's a sum invented probably for the sake of this press conference. Another very important thing is that when Mr. Tusk says that there were some illegal actions on the part of the PIS government, I think that we can agree that there was a closed system, state money was transferred to various entities or politicians, but the question is whether it was legal or not. My take on this is that it was almost in all the cases legal, and it will be very difficult for the prosecutor's office to sustain its charges before the courts. And we have to remember that the prosecutor's office is still subject to political pressure because Mr. Bodnar is still the prosecutor general. So he's a politician. He's a minister in Mr. Tusk's government. And the real verification of all those charges will take place during trials before courts. And as for now, we only have charges from the prosecutors. We don't have any trials, which will tell us whether there were illegal actions or not. And finally, I would say that if we agree, and I agree to some extent with Donald Tusk, that this system was pathological, I would expect this government to present various methods of mending this system, fixing it, so that such events no longer take place. But so far, we have seen nothing like that. No proposals how to mend and fix the system so that it is more transparent.
So now, what about how has the former administration responded to these allegations of illegal spending?
Well, it is just a normal political play, I would say. So Donald Tusk comes out and says that PIS stole money, that it was almost an authoritarian government, and PIS comes out and says that Donald Tusk is an authoritarian, that there is no democracy, that they are being persecuted, and so on and so on. I mean, there is really no point in analyzing and discussing what both sides of this argument say, because their roles, their speeches have been repeated so many times, and they are so similar, and they stand on all such issues is really the same, has been the same all the time since the last elections. So, of course, they will say that these are political charges, that they didn't do anything illegal, which, as I said, is to a large extent probably true. Nevertheless, there is nothing new in that.
So now, what about, given what you just said, what might be the potential impact on public trust in government institutions?
I do not really think that there will be any impact. I mean, after so many months, and it's more than half a year of the new government, most people, excluding a part of civic platform hardline supporters, most people expect something new to happen, expect the government to present a way to fix the issue of rising energy prices, as I said, or the outcome of ETS2, so the Green Deal. And such things are the most important things for people in Poland. At the same time, PIS is not making any gains, or has been not making any gains in the polls. So it's also very much used up. So I think that this is more of a, let's say, ritual dance, which both sides have been repeating on and on and on. And it doesn't bring us any new information or any new look at what has been going on in Poland. So I do not really think there will be any significant impact of that.
Now, what about if we were to go a bit further and the upcoming elections, which will take place in Poland next year? Do you think, is there any way that these allegations that were presented on Friday, might they impact these upcoming elections in any way?
Well, to some extent, yes, because as for the civic platform, they have two possible candidates, and I think that more probable candidate is Mr. Tusk. But as for PIS, they have a real problem with choosing their candidate, and these allegations or indictments or charges, they might probably influence PIS. They might take it into account choosing their candidate. So they make it more possible, more likely that they will choose someone who was either on the outskirts of PIS or even outside PIS. Because if this were to be someone from inside the party, he would probably might be charged with some of the issues that Mr. Tusk is speaking about. So yes, this probably might have some influence on the presidential elections as far as PIS candidate is concerned.
Now, so Poland's opposition party, Law and Justice, PIS, has now launched a website allowing people to anonymously report cases of the government violating the law. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, this is just what the opposition might do in any democratic country. We will see what the result will be. The problem for the new government is, as I said, that it has not introduced any systemic changes. Let's take a look at the Justice Fund, one of the most notorious cases presented by this government, and the charges directed against, for example, Mr. Romanowski, the deputy of the Polish Sejm. So we know that the current government thinks that this was a corrupt mechanism, but at the same time, they have not presented us with any idea how to change the system. There is a code, one of the penal codes, which contains the rules about the Justice Fund, and there is no proposal how to change this code. So yes, I think that it is quite a good idea from the PR point of view on the part of PIS party, and they will probably use those hints during their press conferences But still, I do not really think this is something that might have some very significant influence on the Polish political life so far. But we also have to be prepared for intensification of such events and actions before the presidential elections in May next year.
And now you mentioned when you were now describing the Justice Fund and the penal code, what about when it comes to a timeline? Because also, like you said, now we have these indictments, but then of course trials have to take place. When it comes to time, when do you think we might see some trials taking place and then maybe potentially some changes arising to this Polish penal code?
Well, as far as trials are concerned, I really look forward to them because I think this is the place. I mean, before the court, this is the place where we will finally find out what was legal, what was illegal, and how strong the charges are. But this will definitely take a lot of time. I do not really expect any definite conclusions from those trials sooner than, let's say, in 3 or even 4 years. Sometimes such trials take even longer because there are appeals, of course. So it may even take like 6 years or 8 years. But this is not, as I would say, PR effective as speaking about charges. As far as that specific penal code, not the main penal code, but one of the penal codes, which contains the rules about Justice Fund, Mr. Bodnar said, I think it was a couple of months ago, that the Ministry of Justice was preparing some proposals how to change the code, but so far we have not seen any such proposals, so it's very difficult to say when they will be presented.
All right, and if you were to very briefly tell our international viewers what are some key takeaways they should take from this situation, what would that be?
Well, I would say that first of all, these are issues that do not really significantly influence our political life. Second, that there are some good points in what Mr. Tusk says, but most of it is just a PR action trying to divert attention of the people from more important issues concerning their everyday life. And third, that to mend Polish public life or political life, we always have to look for systemic changes. But no one really wants to introduce any systemic changes when he takes power, because when you take power, when you are in power, you look at things differently than when you are in opposition. And this is exactly the case of the Civic Platform.
All right, Mr. Łukasz Warzecha, political analyst, thank you very much for your insight here on TVP World and for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me.
And that's a wrap for these World Talks. But as always, do stay tuned to TVP World for more breaking news, updates, and interviews. Thanks for watching.